30th overall, 377 yards per game, 250 in the air, 125 on the ground, 27.7 points per game given up. This year's Dallas Cowboys defense was an incredibly compelling argument to be this franchise's worst defense to date. With blame deservingly being thrown at the players, coaches, and front office, moves must be made and have. As recently, the Cowboys let go of defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus and have begun the initial stages of a defensive coordinator search. What's going on, guys? It's Dallas Talks Tua. Today, we're going to be ranking all the potential DC candidates for the Cowboys. Zach Orr is an interesting candidate as he is the complete opposite of the Cowboys' previous hires, which is usually someone with an extensive defensive coordinator experience as well as head coaching experience. Orr is neither of those. With less than a decade of coaching experience, Orr started as a defensive analyst for the Ravens in 2017, where he remained until taking an outside linebacker gig for the Jags in 2021, and immediately returning to the Ravens for the inside linebacker's job, where he worked his way into the DC role in 2024. With having a bit of a weird season with the Ravens as his defense in his first year finished in around 10th overall, but they heavily struggled in pass defense, being near last in the league, but making up for it in their elite run and red zone defense. Now in 2025, looking to build on that previous season, Orr found his defense performing in similar fashion. And overall, he's someone that was potentially going to get fired mid-year, similar to Matt Eberflus. And that's not someone that I necessarily would like to bank on getting better with a new organization. I think that's someone that's likely going to see similar struggles, if not new ones. And I think it's just kind of an odd candidate, in my opinion, as he was in kind of the same talks as Matt Eberflus, where it's like, this guy probably shouldn't have a job by the end of the season. A hometown hero, after a mediocre first year with the Cowboys, White Cotton finds himself earning an interview job for the DC. Unlike Orr, White Cotton has plenty of experience starting with his first job in 2013. Switching from team to team, his most notable stop would be superstar Quinnen Williams, who's now on the Cowboys. And he kind of helped him unlock his pass rush ability. And this is the second option that will kind of leave me disappointed, but considerably less than Orr, as White Cotton really only has gotten position groups with the Jets, and outside of Quinnen Williams, he's never really, had much talent outside of interior linemen, which makes sense as that's what he's been going for. I'm just not really sure if he's got what it takes to be DC. It's not really like a knock on him, it's just kind of admission of ignorance, as I don't really know what he's capable of. The one argument I can make about him is the players seem to really like him. Quinnen really likes him, and on this defense, the group seems to at least enjoy or tolerate him, leaning towards more enjoy. You could also say that out of this terrible defense, his group did the best, as at least the interior did. And I think that's something to note, but I don't know if that's necessarily his doing or we just happen to have the most talent there. Covington is a similar candidate to Orr, as he doesn't have all that much experience as he has with the Patriots for many seasons as D-line coach, and he has a DC for them when they were 4-13, and that necessarily wasn't the problem with them, but they weren't necessarily a good unit. His one season as a DC, he was leading a middle of the group pack, which is now competing for a Super Bowl without him. So fair to say he likely didn't get all that he could out of that group, but it also was likely some changes that led them to elevate once he had left. Either way, he kind of lands in a C tier for similar reasons as other guys. He doesn't really have a lot of experience coaching in positions of power relative to success and where he has coached, and he's kind of a big unknown I haven't really heard about, and I can't really justify, at least personally, giving him anything higher than a C. Jonathan Gannon, he's kind of a B tier guy. I've seen a lot of videos knocking him on his motivational speech, where it was really just some skit for, I think, Impractical Jokers. But overall, that video kind of captures how I'd feel about things, where it's just kind of bleak and meh. He's just it would kind of disappoint me, but it wouldn't be I am over things, I give up. He was kind of a guy who he's had head coaching experience, obviously, but I wouldn't really say he's had success outside of like 1 year in Philly. Although you could argue that the roster building by the front office is really what holds a lot of the success there, or should hold. He led a top unit in 2022. Then he left to be the Cardinals head coach, where the units were kind of shit or middle of the pack, which doesn't really ignite a lot of hope in me. But the one thing it does is you don't really become a head coach without reason, usually. He had success in Philly and is still quite young, so if this is the hire, I think it could work. If it's a long term one, you're hoping maybe you get something out of him that Cardinals couldn't. Also noted, Gannon is going to get an in person interview, so don't really know how to feel about that. Mixed feelings. Next, we have the NFC East's very own Charlie Bullen, who's part of the shit show that is the New York Giants. This would be a very interesting hire, as Bullen's never really been a DC aside from midway through the season where he's thrown into the fire and takes over the job. And listening to some other Cowboys content creators who have talked to Giants people in their own network, they kind of said that the unit seemed to have gotten better week by week, and he was kind of creative with some of their pass rushers. This hire isn't going to go A or C for some reasons, and we'll get into that. First, starting with why he isn't really in the A is because he hasn't been in the position where we've seen a lot of success, and that's partly because he was thrown to the fire, partly because Giants are bad, but overall, it's just kind of an unknown. So hard to put him in the better tier. He was thrown into the fire and was given our bottom tier defense mid-season, so can't really knock him too much, but I can't give him credit because he didn't really do much. But that's also why I don't have him in the C, as he was the next guy up and he was given a shit team mid-season, and we're hearing that things actually got better week by week and he was doing creative stuff, and ultimately I think that's what we need, is someone who can make adjustments and improve and can get creative with using tools that they have. So I wouldn't mind it, but I wouldn't be like crying if this was the move that was to be made. Now, Bonda is a hire that kind of intrigues me for a couple reasons. One, he's been part of an elite defense in the Browns for 3 seasons, on top of having some college experience, which I think does help coach, as you kind of have to manage players in unique and creative plays, as their talent is there, but it's kind of on you to showcase it. Bonda isn't an A-tier hire, as he only has 3 years of pro coaching under his belt, but he's seen success in those 3 years, getting him a B, as he has success as well where he's gone. But how much of it is the actual DC and how much of it is him? An additional plus for Bonda is he has learned under an elite DC, so likely a good amount of overlapping would be found with him in the hire. Out of the B tier hires, I think this would actually be the guy that would make me crack a smile, because he is younger, he's had success and a lot of it, and he's learned under someone that knows what they're doing. He's also DB focused, so that would really help, as that's kind of our biggest issue, at least in my opinion. So for Bonda, he's not necessarily a B. I would say he's a B plus hire. Starting off with Christian Parker in the A tier, he is also one of the guys that has now gotten an in-person interview, or is at least scheduled it. And he's one of the guys that I would say I would be pretty pleased with. He's got a lot of similar traits to Bonda, but he's seen more pro success, as he was the DB's coach in Denver for 2 years and the DB/passing coordinator in Philly the past 2 years. Both those defenses have something in common. Both are elite and both have elite DB play. On top of that, we've seen development in Cooper DeJean and Quavion Mitchell, both emerging as all-pro regards, and it's kind of hard to say if he didn't play a part in that. Either way, Parker would be a great hire in my opinion for many reasons. He's seen success everywhere, and he has been to 2 different organizations and been with 2 elite defenses. Likely learned a lot from both elite DCs. On top of that, we've seen development where he's been, and it's in areas where we desperately need development. And finally, you'd also be taking away talent from your biggest rival and competitor in your division. All of that overall earns you an A+, or at least an A. Now, Leonard is probably the guy who I would say I'm most excited for, but honestly, sometimes I can switch that with Christian Parker. Although he doesn't have much pro experience, he came in pretty hot. He's coached one of the best defenses, if not the best, in football, and he's been a major part in the Broncos' success. And he's also been at Wisconsin as a DC, and he saw huge success in the college realm. And he joined them as a passing coordinator and assistant coach, and he's a guy who's been talked about before when we were having this same conversation with Mike Nolan. That amount of success for that amount of time is exciting, especially because he joined a pro team and learned under one of the best defensive coordinators, and you immediately saw him succeed and improve an already elite defense. And at 14-3, the Broncos are about to attempt a Super Bowl run, and they just beat the Buffalo Bills. Although the defense wasn't looking too great, they ended up getting some stops and some turnovers. It looks like he's a pretty damn good coach. Durante Jones is the final guy that we have on our list, and he's also the final guy who has gotten a in-person interview scheduled with the Cowboys. He's probably a guy out of the A tier. I would most likely switch with Bonda, where it's like he could be in the B or the A, as he's someone who I think checks all the boxes: success where he's gone, learned under an elite DC/head coach, defensive back minded. My major concern is that his success is mostly attributed to the DC, and to be quite frank, outside of the season, the Vikings have had a pretty middle of the road defense after doing some digging. And I think after making this video, I could easily switch Jones and Blonda, as the Browns have had some elite defenses for years, and the Vikings made that job this year as more of a chance to be a fluke than Blonda. I think Jones likely has learned a ton from Flores, and I hope he does, and has a kind of mini Flores version to his defense. It would be something that excites me, and maybe he develops his own version of things, I would hope. But other guys on this list have seen more success away from one dude, and that really is my only knock on him. Other than that, he checks all the boxes and stuff for that. I'd kind of give him like that A-. Overall, I think the guy I would want after doing this is Christian Parker. I think it would just be the things I talked about, like stealing him from the Eagles. He's DB focused. He's developed guys. He's seen a lot of success in Denver and Philly. And I believe he's also younger. He just kind of hits all my boxes that I'd like, as I think he'd be a nice addition to the defense and overall update us on something. But that's all I got, guys. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.